Hey there. Today's episode is a deep, soul level conversation with the incredible Sarah Jones. She is an empowerment mentor for highly sensitive women who feel everything, sometimes even more than they would be able to understand. Sarah supports women in reconnecting with their divine gifts, getting rid of fear, and navigating the world as empaths, creatives, and big feelers. If you've ever wondered, is this what I'm feeling even mine? Or if you've ever been stuck in trying to make sense of your energy, your blocks, your gifts, then this episode is going to land deeply with you. We talk about dysregulated nervous system, which to be honest, I had zero clue about when we started this episode, about ancestral trauma, about self-discovery, and what it means to follow your peace even in business. It's real, it's honest, and it's full of aha moments for anyone on the path of becoming. Let's get into it. This is the Leap, Live, and Lemonade podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Eszter Godor. 12 years ago, I took a big leap. I left my corporate job. I moved into a new country and started a business from scratch in my fifth language. Today, I run a boutique launch and systems agency, helping ambitious entrepreneurs build smart and scalable digital businesses on Kajabi without having to do everything by themselves. This is your go-to place with honest stories, actionable strategies, and real talk around building a business and life you love. Your best life and success story are still ahead. Let's write them together. Hey, Sarah, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right. So, Sarah, my very first question. So, we know where we are, so we know a little bit about you. And for my audience to know where we're going to go today is, what do you do and why you do that?
I am an empowerment mentor. I specifically support highly sensitive women on their journey of self-discovery and healing. My niche, to be more specific, is I serve a Christ-centered population, though what I teach and what I do is broad and open for anyone. It's just I tend to niche into more of a Christ-centered woman. When it comes to that, though, is anyone who is a big feeler, anyone who tends to feel more than what they maybe understand, or they know they have spiritual gifts or abilities that they've tuned down, tuned off, or turned off as a young child based on different variable of things. I support them really understanding themselves, loving themselves, working with their divine gifts rather than being afraid of things. A lot of the focus of what I do is supporting individuals to understand fear from a very conscious standpoint, and understanding that fears are what create their blocks in their marriages, in their businesses, in their life in general. And that's really the foundational work I do, is helping them understand fear and faith. And then we transition into better understanding of what intention and manifestation and hope are. And then we work with intuition and love and navigating light and creation and all this amazing power that resides within us.
Oh wow, that's a lot you just explained, like in a nutshell, and we are definitely gonna go into all the bits and pieces of that, because I would love to go deeper, like who is even highly sensitive, how do we know if you are one, and all the rest of the expressions, also self-discovery, healing. And I know when we prepared for this session, you mentioned empath as an expression, as an identification you often use as well. So we'll go into all that. But before we do, how did this journey start for you? You probably didn't land on this job as your as your go-to one when you came out of your studies. So how did How did you get here?
I have always been a big feeler in the sense of, even as a little kid, I was always sensitive to people. I've been a people watcher my entire life, but I didn't understand why until later on. And I've always been inclined and interested in human behavior, the cause and effect of human behavior. And the reason I have found in my late 30s, I am 42, but in my late 30s, I realized and was given the opportunity to understand that I am autistic and have ADHD. And my entire life up to that point didn't make sense to me. I always knew I was different. I always knew that I was sensing things or saw the world differently or even created and understood relationships differently. But I just didn't understand why until then. And as soon as I learned I was ADHD, all these different pieces started falling into place. I realized why I was so good at pattern recognition, why I was so aware of and could hyper focus on this one area, and why I was so interested in it. When it comes to me specifically, I have nurtured and gotten to know who I am, which is what has opened the door to the work I'm doing now. I went to college at the University of Arizona in the US. I went to the art program. I have a degree in studio art, and I loved creating. And I found over time that this desire to be a natural creator, I was just trying to find its connection with this human behavior and who we are and how it's all connected and where this creation resides within me. And over time, I started seeing the connections, that all of the things I'm feeling and all the things that I'm sensing, it's all connected. I got married in my late 30s. My marriage was then, and I didn't go to college until I was 29. So everything for me has been a little bit later, which has given me also this viewpoint or this vantage point that's been different. And being single for so long, being in charge of my own life and my own everything, which I still am, but it just changes when you get married. but it opened up a lot of things. And then with marriage, realizing and learning I was ADHD at the very beginning of my marriage, marriage was really hard for me the first year. Oh, it was so hard. And I needed help and I needed understanding. I needed to know who I was. I needed to know why I was feeling all the things I was feeling, because I understood cause and effect. I understood that there's a reason for everything. And it just springboarded me from there. And my husband owned his own business when we got married, as also a coach, mentor, and he was highly encouraging of me too. And so I started doing one-on-one and working one-on-one with clients and nurturing my gifts and talents. And lo and behold, here we are 5 years later.
Hey, that's amazing that it feels like you have found your place, or you are much closer to it than ever before. That's what that's what it makes me
Agreed.
feel when
And
I
it's
listen
always
to you.
And it's always a surprise to what I find, especially even with the work that I do, is when you transition into being a mentor of any kind. And one of the reasons that identifying my niche was so hard for me is because I didn't know who I was. And over time, it's not only that I didn't know who I was, I didn't want to identify with some of these parts of me. And realizing that, wait a second, I am an empath, or I am a highly sensitive person. I am someone who has a sensitivity to this unseen world of energy, whether it's coming off of another person or an animal or a tree or a rock. It doesn't matter. Or even the electrical lines that literally are putting and emitting energy. There's a sensitivity that I have, and realizing that, and then, the self-discovery component. I really don't know me. I thought I knew me, but the more that I was challenged and needed to grow in my business and my marriage, the more I realized I didn't know stuff I thought I knew. Like, I didn't know things. And it's been beautiful that over time, it's the clarity has come with business as the clarity has come with finding me.
When you say transitioning to a mentor, when did that happen and what did you do before?
Oh, goodness. I didn't realize I've always been someone that people came and talked to. In my life, throughout my life, I've always been the person that people would come to. I've been told I've always been the wise friend, and people enjoyed conversing with me, but I didn't understand why. I didn't understand that I just had this different perspective of life or of people, and it was enjoyable to talk to me because I thought everyone did what I did. It's an autistic thing where I thought everyone was like me, but they're not. Anyway, I transitioned into mentoring In 2019 is when I transitioned in, and my husband started consulting me on his clients and realizing that I had a skill set that he didn't have. And he has a skill set I don't have. But he would bring me in when a client would get blocked. That's really where I tend to specialize, is where people get blocked and where they're stuck. And I can help them find and get through that block so they can keep going further. And before I started doing this, I actually worked in college admissions. I was an admissions advisor in the computer science world. Even though I myself am not a computer science person, I can speak it. I can talk about the different, now my brain is even blanking it, but computer science is college admissions is what I did.
So for us to imagine that you had a 9 to 5 job, and then your husband, what does he do? What kind of clients were those people who you first helped unblock?
Yeah, he works with, at the beginning, he was working with elite athletes or individuals that were high performers, whether that was in their business world, in their life, athletics, it could be anything, but just high performers. And he would consult me in when they got stuck. There's some subspecialties that I work within, and one of them being, you asked earlier about what kind of got me here as well, and what an empath is. And this is kind of going to combine those answers. But for me, what I've come to understand as an empath is that we have both a dysregulated nervous system. So we're in this like hyper aware state of everything, we're aware of it. And then in opposition to that, we also have something called the gift of empathy, which where we can literally feel the emotions of other people, even if we can't read it in their face, we don't understand it, or even be able to articulate it, but we can still feel it. And what I'm learning to do is regulate my dysregulated nervous system so that I'm not scared of everything I'm feeling. And instead worked with the gift of empathy so I can actually serve people and work with and support myself in the energy I'm in. When it comes to that, my husband, the work where he would consult me in, I would be able to help them understand and identify the dysregulation and where it came from, more specifically the ancestral trauma that's connected to it. Because most people that have a dysregulated nervous system aren't just born the first one in the family line with this dysregulation. Most often, from research and from my own connecting the dots of seeing how things are playing out, is that individuals get dysregulated nervous systems most often because of generational trauma. And then generational trauma expedites experience trauma. And unless it's the randomness of like a car accident that comes out of nowhere and there's a physical trauma, but I'm referring more to like the emotional trauma. Poverty can be a trauma, addiction, any of those types of things can create traumas, and those perpetuate in a family line. And unless someone heals it or discovers themselves and starts healing it, those dysregulations just keep perpetuating. And I do family research I do family history on my side, and I started seeing the correlations with the generational trauma connected to where I'm at. And so my husband has consulted me in those regards of helping identify more of ancestral connections and where things are coming in with our blocks and what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Oh wow, this is a lot.
It is.
But we're definitely gonna go into it, both the dysregulated nervous system for me to even understand what that is, and into the ancestral trauma. But before that, I wanna go into this. So you didn't even think of starting this as a business? Was it fully natural? Like your husband asked you for help, so you helped a few people get unstuck. Yeah, it probably worked well. But how does it turn this whole thing into because this is now your main job, your main activity, right? How does it
Absolutely.
turn into that?
Fulfillment. As soon as I started working with individuals, I started myself to feel fulfilled. I started to feel like all of my gifts and talents started to come out, and I started to be able to use them, and recognizing that I love this work. I love people. It always surprises me when individuals are working in an industry with people, but they actually don't like people. I, on the other hand, I love people. I love connecting with people. I love supporting them. I love learning with them. I love learning from them. I love teaching. I love all those things. And I knew those aspects of me. I knew that I loved people. I was a natural teacher. The things I enjoyed, I love deep diving. I don't know if you know anything about astrology. I love me some light filled astrology, but I have what's called a Scorpio moon. I am an I
Mhm.
anyway, so I like to go really deep with things. I like to really understand. And it's actually, again, another hard thing about business for me has been actually coming back up to the surface and making sure I don't go too deep too fast, which you've already noticed is something I do just in my responses to you, because I can't help. I'm a deep person that talks about deep stuff, and you're like, wow, that's already, I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
It's who I am. And it's been interesting to try to make sure that I stay in a place where I can reach more people. Anyway, it's just it's a fun side note. Uh yeah, yeah. And then I think I went on my little brain, went on a little tangent. Will you let me know if there is anything I missed in your question?
Yeah, on the business side, like did someone encourage you to get started, or was there just a point where you felt like, oh my God, my 9 to 5 job is okay, but this is like way better?
It was that. My husband was always encouraging. He really was. He was always encouraging of,
Mm-hmm.
he recognized that I struggled. Well, there's more of a foundation. There's something within the entrepreneur world that they find that a good amount of ADHD individuals, just I don't know the statistic for autistic, but ADHD individuals, it's like a 70% or like a 60%. And I know statistics are wonky, I get that, but it's a high percentage that become entrepreneurs because we don't fit the construct of a traditional 9 to 5. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I was finding for myself as well. And why business was so important for me is the construct of a traditional 9 to 5 didn't work with my brain. It was too hard. I was doing something at the time called masking, where that's why it took so long for me to learn that I was autistic, because I just blended in and matched the people around me. And I didn't know that I was
Mm-hmm.
doing it. It wasn't a conscious thing, but over time, when I learned I was autistic and I realized I had been masking, I started to remove those masks, which made working a traditional job really hard. It meant
Mm-hmm.
that I was being more honest when I was getting overstimulated. It meant that I wasn't just tuning out and pretending to be someone else while I was at work. And it got really challenging as I was getting self discovery for me to keep a 9 to 5, and feeling that the connection with people and the communication with my coworkers, it was a challenge with my brain. And
Mm-hmm.
starting my own business and growing there, and I just felt like I had so much to share, and I had so much wisdom, I had so much life experience, because I've always been teaching and I've always been supporting people. I had so much that I was like, I just want to share it with everyone. And as soon
Mm-hmm.
as that door invitation was given of, here, come and help this person or support this person on their journey, then I was like, oh, I want to do this all the time. I want to.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty immediately, I wanted to transition, not just doing one on one. I wanted to get and make online content and have online classes and things like that. But at the
Mm-hmm.
time, I didn't know anything about marketing. I didn't know anything about writing copy. I didn't know anything about showing up in a different way. And I was making all this stuff, but I wasn't getting the people attracted to it. And so it took my self
Mm-hmm.
discovery and me getting a business coach, James Wedmore, which we both have and both know and love. And by me working with him and through his BBD and his next level programs, that's what taught me how to really discover who I am and let go of things and get through, so I can show up and be able to serve. And I can have my online pre-made content, or I can have programs that individuals work with and memberships and all that good stuff.
Fantastic. How long would you say you were trying to figure it out by yourself, and then you asked for help?
Yeah, a lot of the figuring out. I had been looking, because I'm so sensitive to energy and because I'm sensitive to people. Again, it's my little spidey sense is that I can feel people really easily, and whether I tune into it, I can go really deep and I can tune in and work with someone really deep. But even if I don't, I can just feel them and I can tell if our energies are going to jive well. And I had been looking for a business mentor for about 2.5 years, but none had fit the energy of what I, Sarah, needed until James Wedmore. And because that was the help I asked for, right? That was the help I needed. Other than that, I was really just trucking along and doing it all myself. My husband was definitely a support to ask questions, but he didn't get the online. I started with the website. I built up the website. I started with Wix. I transitioned to WordPress. Now I'm on Kajabi. I learned how to do all the background stuff. I learned how to do my video editing. I started a podcast. I started with graphic design, like all the things I was doing, all of it. And granted, it was a beautiful time where I got to learn a lot, but sweet goodness, man, it's a lot of stuff. And at this point, I am transitioning into VAs and working with them and getting them to do all the stuff that I don't want to do that anymore. But that's where I had to ask for help, was getting a mentor, getting a business coach. Even though the first program I started with James was a self-paced business program, his BBD was self-paced.
Yeah.
But the second program was the next level. And that was also self-paced, but with massive amounts of support. And last year, I did that in 2024, and that was the hardest year of my life. But without that experience, I wouldn't have had the progressive, like big leaps and bounds of healing and changing and growing if I wouldn't have had those experiences. So that was my asking for help, was getting a mentor and joining a coaching group.
Are you okay to share why 2024 was the most complicated year?
Absolutely. It goes back to that dysregulated nervous system that I'm talking about, and the fact that we can totally heal it. That's where breath work comes in. That's where meditation comes in. That's where mindfulness comes in. We can calm it down, but we can only calm it down when we know that something's going on, when we know that it's doing something a little kooky. We then triggers, or a good way to explain it, you asked earlier of like, well, what is it? Part of it is, if you're someone who is easily triggered, you have a dysregulated nervous system. Like it's an easy identification to say, yes, I'm easily triggered, or I go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn really quickly. And one of the things that I recognize and I've been working on is I was someone who was triggered easily. Not always by other people. My husband has a skill set to trigger me better than anyone, as I'm sure some of you guys also understand. I'm sure of it. But because I had already been aware of my triggers and I'd been working on it and I like to find the root cause. I don't want to just, again, this is where my going deep helps, is I like to find the root. I don't just want to get rid of the simple like Band-Aid. No more Band-Aids. I chose I don't want any more Band-Aids. I want to get to the healing and the deep rooted issue. And because of that, that's what I started 2024 doing, is I wanted to get to deep rooted issues and deep rooted fears and deep rooted things. And it brought a lot up. It brought up things in my marriage. It brought up things with my family dynamics. It brought up things with my parents. And a lot of the healing for me that took place this last year was letting people in and trusting them and asking for help, but also recognizing the trauma that I've had and being honest about it and being sincere. My dad left when I was 2. He abandoned my family, and I'm the youngest of 4. Totally left my mom for her best friend. And just, I had this built up lack of trust for people because of this experienced trauma. But then you go back into my family dynamics, and 2024 just felt like I was in the mire. It felt like I was in this deep, muddy, horrible place that I just kept trying to like climb out of. And I just felt so stuck, and started recognizing that the ancestral connection that I had is how much neglect has showed up in my family. My family was really good in history at having really big families. They could have lots of babies. Could they provide mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically for those babies all the time? Not so much. There's been a lot of self-raising. There's been a lot of children raising children in my family. There's just been a lot. And realizing, combined with my abandonment, combined with my nurturing or lack of nurturing, these two things just collided, and I felt so alone, and I felt so, everything was so heavy and so hard. And it was, but I had to understand that, wait, there are people around me. There is a God who loves me, and I'm working through this to climb out, and I'm not in this alone. And that was the biggest thing, is really identifying that I'm not alone in it. And even if I felt alone, I wasn't, which is an interesting component, to really feel like you're a part of this world. You're a part of this. There's a reason that I'm in the business I'm in. There's a reason that these are my gifts and my talents. There's a reason that I can do these things. Eszter, I do something called intuitive coloring, that I can draw energy on a piece of paper, and you can color it and you can feel it. And I use it as a tool to teach people to understand their intuition and lots of other things. But how random is that? Like, how random is it to have these different skill sets? But over the last year, I had to step into actually owning those skill sets and understanding that I do have these abilities, and I have to be honest about them with myself, and recognize where I'm scared to use them, where I'm scared to talk about them, but also acknowledge that it still is something. It's not this. And I'm unsure if this is how it's going to play out for other people, or if it's only when you're niching into like mentoring and coaching and being you, right? My website is Sarah Jones Mentoring. Like, it's me. Like,
Yeah.
it's my name on it. And I do recognize that when we are owning our business as who we are, it definitely, we show up differently, and it requires different things from us.
I think it's not just mentoring or coaching. I can see it in different areas of business, even like physical products, that some people truly shine through their brand. They are their brand. What they do is super unique. You couldn't invent it. No one else could do it. And I think this is a level of authenticity that when coupled up with the right audience, it can truly do some magic. Was it easy to actually find the right audience? You mentioned there are so many elements that you could be like, how does this even match? Like, it feels like, okay, you have only shared a little bit of it so far, but there is a lot of spirituality. There is also the self-discovery part. Then there is the Christ-centered area. Now you add the coloring. Did you know that you will be able to bring all this together, or was it you started with one side and then the others came because you couldn't resist and you realized they are working? How did this whole web of things come together?
Divine intervention is how they came together. But it is, I agree with what you're saying, is it took me forever to realize, because I was like, look, I serve artists. I serve people who, because originally my business started with me believing that it was artists that I was serving with my intuitive art, and that I was able to help. And then it became trauma. People with lots of trauma are who I help. And then it became, wait a second, my demographic of women that I actually am working with consistently, that people are referring to me, and that word of mouth is coming, is, wait, they're all entrepreneurs. They all own their own business. Oh, they're all energy practitioners. Wait, no, they're not all. And, oh, well, they're ADHD, or they're autistic. And like, all these different niches just kept popping up. And I was like, who is it? I kept trying to like, and at the same time, it goes back to something I said earlier about me and how I was finding me, and that as I was finding me, I was like, I am the artist. I am the ADHD. I am the entrepreneur. I am the this and that. And another underlying theme that has been pretty prevalent too is that they're homesteaders or they're individuals that have this desire to go out and build on the land. And I was like, how do I group all of you guys into one? I have the artist, I have the entrepreneur, because they're not all my clients are visual learners. Not all my clients would categorize themselves as artists. I would even say the majority don't, but some do. Mm-hmm. And then I have the others who it was so confusing for so long, Eszter. And I think that's where the self-discovery for me last year, and truthfully, it also transitioned in why I've become and transitioned into an empowerment mentor, because before last year, my professional work, I was an intuitive. My professional work, I started as an intuitive mentor. I started opening up so that people could learn how to better understand what intuition is from a conscious standpoint and not be scared of what it was. And they could navigate it and start trusting themselves. And because when you trust your intuition, all these other things happen. And then this last year, because of the trials that I went through, and like I went to BBD Live, which is James's live event in December. And there was a moment, the last 10 minutes, like it was a great conference. I was there. It was a 3-day intensive. We were working the entire time. And I just felt at the very end, the last 10 minutes came this like roar out of me. And literally, I roared. We were doing an energy release exercise of scream. And all of a sudden, I was like, I'm supposed to roar. And I roared. And I was like, what is this? And then the phrase came, I am powerful and I am kind. And that was this like ownership of who I am because of the gifts and talents I have. I can be a little overwhelming. I can be a little much. And one of those things to balance it, though, is the feeling was you are powerful and you're kind. And I was like, I'm an empowerment mentor then, right? I'm an empowerment coach. I'm not just an intuitive coach. Like that's only a piece of what I teach. And it's been very, very interesting to get to this point of discovery. It's been very interesting. And to now recognize that the one thing that all of my clients have in common is they are all empaths or they're all highly sensitive, all of them. Every single one. There is no question that every single one of them fits into that category. And again, because of the one-on-one mentoring I do, I can see the patterns of what I'm teaching some of them over and over again. And those are the things that I've taken and put into the programs that I have and taken and put in, because let's get you foundationally like in this empowerment place, and then we can build on. That's why one of the first things I teach is crushing fear. Like we need to help you understand fear from a very conscious standpoint so it doesn't have power over you. You have power over it. And yeah, it took a long time, Eszter. It took until last year at the middle of the year for me to identify that it was empaths.
And it might be, I'm pretty sure that this is still an evolution. It will never stop. So if I talk to you in 2 years, there might be little tweaks, but I'm pretty certain that you are going in the right direction and you are now very close to the essence. So who is an empath? How does someone listening to us know if they are one or they are not? I don't know if I am. Is it a good thing, a bad thing to be an empath? What is it?
I think it's a very good thing. Again, it goes to the two components I was talking about of where you either have the dysregulated nervous system that has heightened your ability and your sense to be aware of things that are on the physical plane, or even this underlying energy that's just right below the surface of someone who might be angry, or you're feeling the negatives, this underlying energy that tends to be negative where you're really cautious around the world, partnered with the gift of empathy, which is where you can feel people, you can feel the energy of people, you can feel that they're good, you can feel that there's things going on. I personally believe it's a very beautiful gift, but it's one that can be very confusing if you don't know what's going on. It can be really challenging when you're like, why am I feeling this way? I was feeling fine just a second ago. And it's like, well, you just walked into a room where someone was super grumpy or someone was really scared. And you being an empath, you felt that. And now you are identifying with that feeling. Now you're identifying with that fear or that anger, and you're like, what is happening? And one of the reasons as an empath that it's so important to get to know yourself is because you can feel so many other things. You have to know what's yours and what's not. And as an empath, it's you have to really do, you have to know. And it can be that you're feeling your parents, you can be feeling your family, your spouse, and you just get so lost in the mix that you're like, I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't even know, because you're so used to giving or letting people or other things into your energy space that you don't know. And oftentimes one of the biggest that I have found is a very similar is that individuals with really no boundaries tend to be the people that are the biggest feelers, because they just take all energy in and on, and they are used to it, whether it's because people broke their boundaries as a kid, they inherited no boundaries because their parents didn't have boundaries or no one taught them how to create them. But boundaries have been a pretty common aspect of a dysregulated nervous system. They tie together. They are one and one usually. And when you're working to regulate your dysregulated nervous system, it's usually also in connection with setting boundaries, which then helps you to develop this gift of empathy, so that when you are in a space and you can really feel what's happening from a stage, when you can really feel what's happening in a group that you're mentoring or you're working with, or you can feel what's happening with a client, you actually have this like super spidey sense to be like, I know how to serve this. I know how to work with this. It's not that you have to tell them what they're feeling, but you yourself know what you're feeling, and you can articulate it so well that you know how to better serve the people, your children, your spouse, your clients, your anyone and everyone you interact with. We have the ability to nurture both of them. I would venture to say the majority of the world is still in the dysregulated nervous system, where they don't know that it's a gift yet. But those who tap in and understand that it's a gift and they can use it, these are the ones that are making some pretty cool moves in the work that they're doing when you can nurture that gift.
Would you say that it's that having a dysregulated nervous system, is it, if someone has it, is it something that accompanies them throughout their whole life, and it's a constant, like once you know how to manage that, then it's a different phase because you have it like tamed or something like that,
Yeah.
but it's not something that like goes away, right?
Well, for me personally, how I like to explain it at this point, because I'm still on my journey of healing it, right? But at this point, I still have reactions. My nervous system still wants to like flare up, but I now know, like you said, I now have tools to get it to calm down, and I can get it to calm down really fast. And when I can't, I still know what's going on. I'm still aware of what's happening. I can separate myself. I can go lay on the floor. I can sit and take some deep breaths. I also use intuitive coloring for myself. I also draw and I use it to process energy. So if I'm just feeling so much, I use it as a way to release. You might notice, you just going with the last question as well, is how do I know if I'm an empath? Are you feeling so much that you have to move? Most artists are really sensitive to energy. Most musicians, most creatives are really sensitive. If you're anywhere on what's called the neurodivergent spectrum, which is not only autism and ADD, ADHD, but it's also the bipolars, the schizophrenias. It's also even Down syndrome is on this neurodivergent umbrella. You're an empath. That already has some stuff going on, but it can lessen over time. I'm at a point in my life where I'm okay if it doesn't ever go away fully, but I'm also a believer that it can, but it takes a lot of effort. It takes very focused effort to get it to regulate and to get to this place of peace. Because regulated nervous system is where you feel inner peace. It's where you are able to sit in the silence. It's where you're able to be in this place of love and respect and value within yourself, where you're like, oh, it's a feeling. And which is why I use the phraseology in a lot of my work is follow the peace. Follow the peace. If you choose to follow the peace, you can't ever go wrong. Like you're always going to be on the right path if that's a mantra you're willing to live with. And if you're willing to follow the peace, that means you're going to go every path that gets your system to regulate, because that's what a regulated nervous system does. But because it's biological, it's also happening inside. It's a physical thing happening in my brain and along my nervous system, right? There's multiple nervous systems, but I'm simplifying it just for ease of digestion. But when it comes to our nervous systems, there's a biology in our brain where we have neural pathways where things are happening. And I like to think of a neural pathway, and this is why we can inherit stuff. Neural pathways can become really deep. And neural pathways are anything like the fear of a spider or a snake. That is a learned behavior where we become afraid of something. But because of a fear, we can develop these like Grand Canyon type sizes of these neural pathways that the moment you see a spider or a snake, you freak out, because that neural pathway is so deep that says, freak out, there's something bad in there. But over time, with your very conscious and purposeful actions, you can change that neural pathway. You can change it instead of being afraid of the spider, because you're working on the breath work. You're working on the I'm safe, I'm okay, it's okay. You're working within yourself to bring in that peace and to bring in that calm. But it's definitely an effort and not something that just happens. You have to, it's a choice. It is a choice.
How do we identify? You said something that resonated a lot, is identifying whether what we feel is ours or it's not. And something came up in my mind often when I work with clients or work for clients. Sometimes I get stuff and I work on it for them for a day or for a whole week, and sometimes I catch myself being totally stressed, or sometimes I don't even catch myself, but I'm wearing this whoop and it might tell me in the end of the day, today you were 2 hours more in high stress than usual, and it wasn't sports or activity, so it was just probably work or something going on. Yeah. And then I would realize, oh my god, I was working on this project and I know that the client wanted it for yesterday, and it's like I have taken on their anxiety, their nervousness about this not being on time. But I'm actually, from a business perspective, I'm actually doing them a disservice if I fully take it on, rather than being calm about it and invading them with my calmness. Taking on their crazy attitude towards it is not great for the whole project. But on my body, if I didn't have this device, I wouldn't even notice. I would just probably go to bed like this, and if I go to bed like this, I also wake up like that. So it's not so easy to even identify. But yeah, how do we catch something that's not even ours? That would be my question.
I love that. I feel two things. One is I want to share the story that's similar, just to give people more understanding. Is the exact thing happened. I went to Costco this last year, it was right around Thanksgiving, or it was right around Christmas. And I walked into Costco and immediately I was like, I gotta go fast. And I was like 2 minutes in, I was like, what the freak am I doing? Like, you do not need to like speed through this. You actually came because you wanted to walk around. You didn't need something for Christmas. You're not in a rush for something. You literally just came to shop. Like, calm down and slow down. But I even recognized in that space that everyone else's energy started to impact me, and I had to be very conscious of it. So the second part of my answer is I live by a mantra. It's my cry unto the Lord principle, but it works with anyone and everyone. It's just the principle, but it will make sense. It is, you have to be willing, It's wah, wah, right? Crying. You have to be willing and humble. And then you start to become aware. Awareness is the key. When you're trying to discover what is happening inside of you, you have to be willing and humble. And then as soon as those two things start to say, okay, I'm willing to be like, maybe there's something else going on that I don't understand. Maybe there's something
Mhm.
happening that I don't know. Maybe there's just more stuff that's out there that is to be discovered that we haven't discovered yet. A
Mhm.
willingness will open you up to always getting more insights. Awareness, though, is the key to be able to move forward out of it. We go to awareness and then we go to where we start acknowledging it. I would say, Eszter, that you just had that moment where you acknowledged it and you're like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I'm doing. Like that, taking this in. When we start acknowledging it, acknowledgement is without shame or blame. Acknowledgement is us just saying, this is happening. Yes, this is happening, or no, this is not happening. But acknowledgement, no shame, no blame, it just is, right? Once we get to acknowledgement, then we can transition to being accountable and we start to understand our role in something. And yes, this negative thing has had consequences, and I've been doing this thing. And this is where maybe it's time to apologize or it's time to give forgiveness. It can be a combination, but accountability is a part of it. And then we
Or it's time
transition.
to set a boundary.
Exactly. Time to set the boundary. Accountability is the point of saying, this is the right, acknowledging it. This is happening. Accountability is, okay, what's my role in it? And to set the boundary. I love that. And then we transition to acceptance as the final stage. And acceptance is understanding that we don't get to, it is neither good or bad, it just is, and we can be
Mhm.
grateful for it no matter what. Gratitude is the thing that will shift us out of any of that negative thinking or any of that not understanding. So in the sense of the big picture of understanding that you're empathing your clients, it is acknowledging, I am doing this. Okay, the accountability, what role is mine and what role is theirs, and how does this all play out? And then the accountability also says, oh, maybe before something I need to really like take time and have my own moment with myself before I open up someone else's stuff. Or maybe I check in with their energy before I even sign them as a client and say, maybe the energy of this thing is not matching where I'm at or where I want to be. And you start saying no because it's not in
Mhm.
alignment with you anymore. As soon as you transition, and then that acceptance point and where you're just, it is what it is, it's neither good or bad, it just is, I learned from it, I grew from it, I'm thankful for it, and then you can let go. And that's the biggest I guess arc is wow. To be aware of ourselves is choosing to be aware, choose to see it, choose to be like, there must be something else going on, and choosing that people are innately good, even if people do stupid things and people are unkind. The core of the
Mhm.
human condition is they are kind, people are good, people do bad stuff, but when you understand even or want to believe that, then things also change. When you believe you yourself are good and that I am good, I am choosing, I'm trying to make good choices, or I'm trying to help the world be better, or my family to become stronger or healthier, whatever you want to say, but I am a good person, that also
Mhm.
changes the dynamics of what you understand. Stop blaming yourself for things that have nothing to do with you.
Wow, there is so much awesomeness here. What it makes me feel, though, with everything you say, is it needs time.
Yes.
Like your mantra, follow the peace. Was it follow the peace? It made me feel like, oh my God, this is fantastic, but I normally feel that I don't have the time for that. Or when you say identify the energy of the potential client and maybe say no, it just makes me realize that the last, like, I started the year later because I was sick. So I literally started on the 19th of January. And then I wanted to, catch up with everything. And literally in the last 2 weeks, I was just sending out offers. When a potential client was totally off, yeah, I did say no, but But I can definitely say that in these 2 weeks, I didn't really stop to even notice what kind of energy is there, whether it resonates with me or not. It was more like, let's just pick up where we left off before Christmas, and let's give it a boost, and whatever comes is coming because I have to give it attention. And it has been tiring. Like, even just in 2 weeks in January, I it feels like I already worked like 60 days. So yeah, how do we find the time for when it's like, okay, because you don't ever get to feel the energy or observe yourself or see whether something you feel is yours or not if you don't stop. And I think that's what we do the least, at least those people who haven't been learning with you probably. How do we even get to the point to realize that, okay, we need to stop? And how do we take the moment? Sometimes I feel like I go to yoga class, so we do the 10-minute meditation in the end, because I know if I don't go, I'm not going to do the 10-minute meditation at home because it feels like I never have the time. Then I catch myself scrolling Instagram for half an hour, and I'm like, shit, I could have done 3 10-minute meditations, but I didn't. So, how do we stop?
I love that question. And the simple answer is you are your business. You are your business. How your energy shows up is what you're attracting. In the case, the simplicity of, oh, but it's going to take so much time and so much effort and so much energy for me to weed out the energy that doesn't serve. Actually, the more you become in alignment with you, the more you will naturally repel energy that does not connect with you, and the more you're going to attract energy that does. And when it comes to the individuals, you'll know immediately, like, nope, that's a no. You don't even have to like check in with your energy or their energy. You immediately know the yeses and the nos when you actually get to know you. When you start recognizing, I love looking out at the world. I love looking at my relationships. This is another thing that my marriage helped me with, is everything that is outside of me, the way I see it, is a mirror to me. Everything. Because everything is a mirror. And my relationship with my husband, what he's doing and what I'm seeing or I'm perceiving he's doing, is also a mirror to me of what I'm actually feeling, what I'm actually thinking. And I start to look at everything as that represents me. So where inside of me am I doing that or not doing that? Because one of the things you brought up is, especially business blocks. When we get blocked in business, we get stuck and we feel like, I just keep doing the same thing and I can't get through this block. I can't get through this money block. I can't get through this expansion block, these more people blocks. Well, these are because you keep doing the same thing, trying to get different results. And if you want to get different results, you have to actually change what you're doing, which in this case would be, let's get to know ourselves. Let's start finding our funky energy and getting our funky energy out, because the more funky energy I release and get out of me, I'm not going to be attracting funky energy. They're not going to, you don't attract the energy. You might attract people that are the haters, in the sense of like the people that are like this, but you're not going to attract people who want to work with you that have funky energy. I'm not saying that you're not going to get the people that are like, oh, your stuff is horrible or sucks. Like, those are very different people. But the more we clear up our energy, the more we naturally attract. At the same time, there is another phrase that, this is one my husband taught me, is how you are in one relationship is how you are in all relationships. And if you perceive that your marriage relationship or your business or your relationship with money is different than your relationship with how you communicate with yourself or how you show up for your clients, it's a disservice to all of you to not understand that, wait a second, if I'm scared here, I'm also scared here. If I'm concerned here, or my relationship with money is the same as my relationship with a partner or my business, it's the same. Absolutely. How you perceive money is how you perceive the other things in your life, even if you think that it looks different. We are simple beings. We are simple. We can't show up as different people. We don't have that. Yes, there's narcissists in the world. I will be there. Yes, that is a true thing. However, the narcissist, how they show up in the world is also how they show up with money. It's how they show up with everything that they're doing as well. And when we really get to know ourselves and recognize that everything's a mirror, and that we can start to learn from that, we will naturally just time will become. And that time sacrifice that you're talking about is getting to know yourself. And that is, it's a sacrifice. It is definitely something that takes time. But the moment you start doing it is the moment you start getting returns on your investment, your ROI. The moment you start turning inward, you start getting the returns, whether that's better communication with other people, whether that's bringing in more financial stability with work, whether that's you having more peace and feeling more happy, getting less sick, having better connection with your kids, whatever it is, the moment you start healing and going inward, absolutely, you get your return on investment started.
Where to get started with that? I feel that I take care of myself when things go wrong, that then I do put more emphasis on that. And then I'm pretty organized and meticulous about taking care of myself physically, mentally. But when things go just normal, I tend to forget about that and think that it's now fixed. Like, I take vitamins and I stopped taking them because things were normal, and then I got really sick this end of 2024. And then I was looking at the vitamins. I literally didn't get to the end of my 3 month vitamin. How do you say this? What I should have taken in 3 months, I took it in a year, because I only took vitamins when I got sick. After that, for like a month. And then I was like, okay, it's fixed, it's done. And I think it's the same with my mental stability as well, or with how I show up in my business, is that when things go wrong, for example, if I have a big tax bill I'm having trouble paying, I would look at managing my money better, and for a few months it would be going well. Or when I have crappy clients, I would pay better attention, and then I have better clients. But it seems to come in waves. How to keep it a bit more constant? I understand it can't just be always perfect, but there's definitely a better way than this whole amplitude of being up very high and then down very low.
Yeah, yes. The thing that's coming to mind for me is there's a principle when it comes to taking action. I talked a little bit ago about me and my niche, right? How it took years for me to understand what it was. The underlying energy there that I didn't emphasize is that I continually took action every step of the way. Every step of the way, I had to be doing something for the refinement process to happen, for me to like figure it out what was going on, even though each time was so frustrating of like, why isn't this it yet? Why hasn't it happened yet? And it's interesting that over the years, I started to be grateful for what started happening. Connecting with that, though, is taking action and making sure that you understand very consciously that taking action is what gets you into any kind of motion. When we become like, it's kind of like, it's not kind of, it's the opposite of flow. When you are not taking action, you can get stagnant. And even if the action is physically not taking a vitamin, but it's also the stagnation of the thought that says this is just how it's always going to be. This is just what it is. That mindset that I've been studying, that mindset specifically just for the last couple months, is the mindset of this is how things have always been. This is just how things are. This is how they're always going to be. That's literally the definition of hopelessness. Like, that's how you stay hopeless. What's crazy when there's hopeless energy involved, that stops us from being able to manifest because hope is required to manifest because you believe that something is coming. Hope allows you to believe something is coming and you can create it. In that regard, also, we transition to intuition of, you said, well, how do I stay in motion? Your intuition is a key component here because you want to always be feeling and understanding. And when you're open to always receiving these bursts of light, because intuition in my world is the light of Christ, or it's this divine light that is sent from heaven that illuminates and helps us to get where we need to be. And it's not a big, big revelation. It's not this like, oh my gosh, you're going to change the world. That's not what intuition is doing. Intuition is giving you these little bursts, right? So in the case of how do I make sure I take this vitamin so that I can stay on the path, like in my health, like on my health journey? Well, did you receive a little burst of, hey, Eszter, take your vitamin today? And you went, whoop, and you just set that thought aside rather than tuning into what that light is? Or do you feel the impression, oh, I need to go for a walk or I need to do this? And you get these little bursts, but trained your mind to be like, I know more. I'm going to say, no, I don't need that. And this is why humility is a part of that crying unto the Lord principle, because humility is how we get the answers. Humility is how we become aware of things. And if we don't have humility, in like gospel terms, the opposite of humility is pride or ego. It's where we're saying we know what's going on, we know what we're doing, we know how to do it. When in reality, we have no clue what we're doing. We have no idea how things work. And when we are humble enough to admit that we don't know how something works, then you're willing to listen. And it goes through that cycle again of intuition to action, action to intention, intention to intuition. And we stay on this beautiful cycle of growth when we're continuing that process of, I'm willing to take an action, I want to set my intention and manifest, and I'm going to follow the intuitive impressions that I receive. And then it happens again and again and again. Does that answer that for you?
Yeah, I love the little bursts that you just brought up, because I think they do happen, but especially when it's very recent with the vitamins or with a client or with meditation or with physical activity, taking care of my body, or with what I eat. Those little bursts are there, but I might say, oh, I'm just gonna skip it today because I have this quick call to take, and then the moment is gone. And maybe the burst would still happen the second day, the third, but on the 10th, the burst is not even gonna happen because I fully muted it. Yeah.
Correct.
But
You've
if
muted.
I pay attention to the first burst or to the second, I'm not saying like every single day we have to be perfectly aligned and
Yep.
all that. But if I paid attention to one of those first bursts, and I would say, yeah, it only takes a minute, and later I will be so grateful I did this because I know how much I regret not doing stuff and how great it is when I do. Then if I pay attention to that and act right when it happens, then I think I can keep up with it. I can keep the momentum.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what's beautiful too is that most of us have a thing that we are naturally inclined to be intuitive with. Because in trusting your intuition is like building muscle. You're building muscle memory where you're like, oh, I can just do that because you're so used to those little bursts that you just start acting on them. But you're building the muscle to it, especially if you haven't been tuning into it and you haven't been used to actually like stopping and being like, oh, I this will be beneficial for me to do. It's take the time and process and stop with it. For me, I learned more about my intuition in the kitchen cooking years ago because I am naturally intuitive. It is my natural inclination. Most empaths are also naturally intuitive, where we can tune in and you can get your yeses and your nos and you can understand what things are. For me, I learned to be highly intuitive when I was cooking. But why was I okay to do it when I was cooking? Well, because cooking was my special interest. I love all things food. I love cooking it. I love shopping for it. I love growing it. I love all the things, right? Eating it, all the things. I love food. And when I was in my teens and 20s, I would consume everything about cooking. I checked out cookbooks and cooking magazines from the library. I watched cooking shows. I took in all this information. And then when I had an intuitive impression in the kitchen to swap something for something else, because I knew that it wasn't my thought that did it, I felt a little burst that says, hey, you don't have any carrots, but you have a sweet potato. Go ahead and substitute a sweet potato. And I was like, oh, of course I can substitute, because I had a knowledge of a sweet potato also being starchy, also being sweet like a carrot. And that's what I was using the carrot for, was for the starch and the sweetness. So, oh, perfect. I can use a sweet potato. Intuition, when we already have a knowledge in a subject, it's a lot more comfortable for us to follow our intuition in those areas and to be like, oh, intuitively, I'm a graphic designer, or I work in the healthcare, and I can tell when someone or something, or I need this color or this font, or I need to talk to this person or that person. That's intuition. However, what we're learning to do is to use that intuition everywhere in our lives, and especially in the areas that we don't know things in yet, like learning to build that muscle with what we don't know. And you can do that, but it builds on itself. You follow the intuitive impression, and then something cool happens, or something bad doesn't happen, whatever process you want to see it as. But something great happens, and then you're like, I'm willing to follow that little burst of light again. Oh, I'm willing to follow that little burst of light again. I like using an example of, I was in college and I felt an intuitive little impression of, don't wear your favorite shirt today. And I was like, whatever, I want to wear my favorite shirt because it's cute. Like, I had my outfit planned and all the things. Lo and behold, within an hour of getting to school, I ripped my shirt. Like, I ripped it, and I was so sad. And I was like, why didn't I just wear the purple shirt? Like, why did I wear my favorite black shirt instead of the other shirt? And then I learned to follow my intuition and follow the peace, because I didn't follow the peace, right? And I didn't. And it's important for us to know to nurture that. Often we even want to start nurturing it because we do the thing that doesn't bring us peace. And then when we start following the peace, it starts feeling better and better and better. We're like, okay, I'm going to do that. That feels way better. And it just becomes second nature. It becomes part of who we are rather than something we have to do, which makes it less overwhelming, overstimulating, much, much more easy and simple to just become, rather than having to be like, oh, I have to check all these boxes and do this.
Yeah, I'm definitely the person that has to check the boxes, and the last 2 3 years I would say I'm going more towards the intuitive direction, because checking the boxes is so tiring going through everything. And I know, or I think, maybe it's not true, but my thought for now is that intuition has been working super well in my private life, but I'm not so sure about my business. Like you just mentioned the substituting the carrot with sweet potato. There is one of my favorite intuition things that we did as a family is that we want we want an amazing house very close to the beach with an amazing garden. And for now we don't have the funds for it yet, but we 2 years ago I decided we would do house sitting and pet sitting, and we have done some amazing trips. We have gotten to know amazing people, and we are staying in houses that are the exact match to where we want to be living. And that's such a nice temporary substitute. Like we can't afford that house yet, but we do have this. But in my business I would struggle to mention such a specific example. Where would you say, or what would you say was the best or your favorite example from, let's say, your last year, or these years you have been in business, where intuition played a very important role?
For me, Eszter, it's in my every single day and every single moment. Let me see. Let's see if something comes to recall for me. It has become such an integral part of just my being that I don't know if I could define it as something. But when
So
it
how does
comes to
it show up every single day? I would love to understand that.
perfect, the way it shows up is intuition. It helps me to be open to all the possibilities. It helps me to understand that there's no end cap, that there's possibility for all things, that everything is possible. And when I feel an intuitive impression, it also comes with how I structure my days of I need to work on this. I need to work on this. I don't need to work on this today. It also helps me to navigate who I'm talking to, what I'm writing, what I'm doing. I've used it in my writing of not only my copy, but also, I have a recent one. I am putting together an in-person art class for where I'm visiting right now. And one of the things is I was just getting I was so stuck on the verbiage of what I should call this thing. Like, what am I supposed to call this class? Because I know exactly what I'm teaching in it, but I feel that the words, because again, I go really deep. I have a hard time like finding verbiage that attracts people because the way my brain works. And I was like, okay, let me, and I was like, what am I supposed to do? And then all of a sudden I get this little burst of light of like, Sarah, take everything that you've written and put it in ChatGPT. Take everything that you've written for this class, what it's about, what it's going to be, what it's teaching, all the deep stuff that you've written. Now ask ChatGPT to give you a class title. Like, it was the most glorious, it was glorious. And then it gave me 4 different titles. And so I took those titles to my Instagram and asked for help with the poll. And I said, hey, can you guys tell me which one of these, based on this is what I want to do, tell me which class title is attractive. People chose all of them. And I was like, no. And then I had an impression again of Sarah, just combine all 4 of them. And so literally the title is 2 of them, like the title and then the subtitle. And then the other 2 phrases that I really liked in the other classes became part of the first descriptive of like, this is what
like
the class is. It was the coolest thing. So that is an actual, there you go. There's an actual, because my brain, I wasn't thinking of it. It wasn't coming to me to use ChatGPT, but then this little burst of light came in and said, take everything that you've written and put it in there. Best thing ever.
I love this. This is beautiful, because the other thing you could have done is, oh, I'm not going to launch this course because I don't know the name yet. And you could just put it into a drawer. That's what happens to me a lot of times. Like, I still have to figure that out. And then sometimes talking to just a friend who maybe has nothing to do with my business could solve it. And this approach is fantastic too. Okay, so maybe for me, it's like I shouldn't only focus on these huge, life-changing, intuitive, like touches and manifestations, but it's the like, how do I go about my day? Even in that, there can be so much of it, and it doesn't have to be the checking all the boxes. It can be the, how am I feeling, who I am today, what resonates best with that, how can I create best today. Okay, oh wow, there's so much to this. I love this.
Yeah, I feel to share an added caveat here. Is when we feel an impression, sometimes the impressions we feel are going to be, do this because this is the best option for you. And then it's like, okay, posting or hosting a podcast day of the week, you might feel those little bursts of like, you need to send it out on Thursdays at 3 p.m., right? You might feel, and then every Thursday you send it out at 3 p.m. because you felt that impression. But then excuse me, then there's going to be times where you actually get an impression in a little burst that says, do it on Thursday at 3 p.m. And then the next week, not your podcast necessarily, because it's good to be consistent. But if you ever do feel an impression, a little burst that says, do it at another day on another time, or do it at 2:00 instead of letting it be so rigid that you have an end cap that says, no, it has to be done this way at this time, choose to take that end cap off and say, all things are possible. There's a reason for all of it. I had this feeling for a reason. Maybe I need to do it for another time. Because again, you may not understand the reason why, but if you're willing to follow it, your energy is going to be in better alignment. In the same regard, for me, I felt an impression. We're having a family. I am visiting family in Ohio right now, and we are getting together and having a family dinner in the next couple weeks. And I felt very impressed, little blurt of light of like, do it on Monday at this time. And I was like, perfect. And then the family started replying, and I have a cousin who can't come that day. So then I started being like, oh, do we need to change it? Do we need to change all of it? Do we need to? Yeah. And then that little burst of feeling came in and said, I already gave you the answer. Like, you already knew it was Monday and you felt really good about that. Just stick with the Monday, like do it on that day. And at the same time, that answer could also change down the road. And well, how do we always know? Follow the piece. That's how you know which one's going to follow, because we're being taught during all of this process. We're being taught. And so it doesn't ever have to go like this, like you were saying earlier, but it might go like this. Like it might really go up and down of, what am I supposed to do? Oh, here's a burst. Oh, how am I supposed to do it? Oh, here's a burst.
Yeah.
And sometimes they might contradict each other, not because they're wrong, but because you yourself are learning and building trust with yourself, trust with your intuition. And you might get a contradiction, but follow the piece and you're always going to be fine. You're going to be just fine. Anything that creates any kind of feeling, there's your sign that that's not what you want to do.
Yeah. Love it. It's like, yeah, shiny objects and knowing which one is the real one and which one isn't. Follow the piece.
And at the same time, you're also changing neural pathways because you're choosing, and maybe you're someone who has spoken unkindly or been negative or been doubtful, or maybe that's been your nature. But by following these new impressions of, wait, I have this little burst that I trust that because it did something really cool last time, then you also get to rewrite your nervous system. Then you also get to change the physical things that are happening in your body as well.
Love it. Yeah. Oh, wow. There's so much more I would love to know. But yeah, I want to be conscious of your time. If someone totally resonates with everything they heard today, or they're like, oh my God, this was a lot, but I would love to hear more, where can they find you? What's the best way to...
The best way is probably on my website, which is sarahjonesmentoring.com. And from there, you actually have lots of fun, not only free resources, but you also get other stuff. And there's lots of fun stuff on there. That's my best. And join the follow along and you'll get on my email list. I have a monthly newsletter that might be turning into a bi-monthly newsletter. And then I have a free class. It's a training webinar every month as well that I offer called Move Your Mountains, to help you get unstuck, to understand that, go into more detail about intuition, intention, and action and how they all work together. And yeah, that's how I touch base and stay in touch with people.
Fantastic. We will add all that into the show notes. And now to finish off, a last question. Where do you see yourself in 1 or 2 years?
Ooh, I like that question. Where do I see myself in 1 or 2 years? I want to start working with nonprofits. I want to start working with, I grew up in poverty is a pretty common thread in my family line. And I grew up poor, and I have a special spot in my heart for other people who have lived in those circumstances or the traumas of those. And I would love to work within food and community and building and infrastructure and just empowering single moms, all the things. I would love to work within a nonprofit, and then growing my business, getting on more stages, getting on more stages. I would love to be in one of James Wedmore's, I want to be one of his guest speakers at his BBD or during one of his next level events.
Ooh, that's exciting.
That's one of my goals.
Love it. Wow. I wish that all of this comes true. I have no doubt it will. I love how you embrace this new identity, this identity that has shaped from all your past learnings. Thank you so much for giving us a little insight into your journey. I think it's super inspiring. And I know that to people out there who might be like, I'm pulled into so many directions, or I'm an outsider, I'm not the, like, business is not this. Like, your example shows me that business is anything you want to bring into it, and anything you dare and are proud of standing for.
Oh,
And
Esther, I
thank
love
you
that.
for sharing this.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm so grateful that I could be here. And you're just so generous. And I love your openness and your questions. And I appreciate the opportunity. So thank you.
I had an amazing time, and I could go on for hours. So maybe, who knows, we can continue another day in another episode.